Okay. All right, let's fucking try this shit again, man. Oh, that's absolutely brutal. Just godforsakenly, frustratingly, absolute brutality. Look, here's the problem. Full disclosure. I don't have a producer. I am my own producer when I do this shit. And I didn't have a producer. No wonder nobody was watching. Nobody could even hear the things that I'm saying. Yay! Andy, you hear me. Andy, this is why I need you to be my de facto producer. This is the problem. I need you to be my de facto producer so you can say, you do it with Nerd It Up. I don't know why you didn't do it tonight, but I need you to say, hey man, there's no sound. Mike had to tell me. Mike, like 10 minutes into it, finally told me that there's no sound coming through. But the beautiful thing about doing my own show is that I can just restart the entire thing from the very beginning. At least all my takes are gonna be fully fleshed out. That's great. That's awesome. Super excited about that. But hey, let's try this again. Hi everybody, how are y'all doing tonight? I had to restart the show and I had to restart the stream. It's like a do-over. It's like it never happened. Pretend like nothing happened at all. Everything went wrong, and I had to fix it, and now it's fixed, so you can actually hear me saying things. But tonight we got a lot of cool stuff, a lot of fun stuff to dive into. I had a whole amazing conversation with myself about the MLB All-Star Game, and now you guys can actually hear what I was saying. Now I don't have to have the fucking conversation with myself. I can have a conversation with you guys. So let's just dive right into it. Last night's home run derby was absolutely amazing. And first things first, I cannot wait for Yordan Alvarez versus Vladimir Guerrero Jr. next year, because we all know it's going to happen. I know everybody on Twitter is talking about it. It's definitely going to be a thing. But last night's home run derby was one of the best fun sporting events I've seen in a long time. It's probably the best home run derby I've watched, possibly one of the best, definitely, that I've watched. That I've watched in my lifetime. But it's definitely, I would say it's the best of the last 10 years. I know the 2011-2010 home run derby was a lot of fun, but this one was my favorite. Watching Jock Peterson and Vladimir Guerrero in that semifinals round was just so absolutely incredible. You know, Vladimir Guerrero hits 29. He's going for 30. The 30th home run hits the very top of the wall. Jock Peterson goes out. He hits 29. He matches it. His 30th home run misses. They have to do it again, and they get the 1 minute timed, and they tie, and then they get the 3 swings, and then they it was so much fun to watch them going back and forth and back and forth. And it leads me to this. And I was watching the MLB All-Star Game. This is why I was a little thrown off whenever I came up here, is I'm trying to actually watch the All-Star Game and then have like 20 minutes to try to throw everything together before I start my show. But I'm watching the MLB All-Star Game, and I'm watching the players being mic'd up, Christian Yelich and Cody Bellinger talking, and I know it was a little awkward because Buck is trying to interview them in the middle of plays, and so there's some kinks to work out, but I absolutely love the players being mic'd up. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second, but then you see the Astros players being mic'd up, and even guys that I know that just can't stand the Astros, or even my friend Sean Hudgens is on Twitter going, please take them off the camera, they're so damn likable, I don't want to like them right now. But the Major League Baseball has the best all-star event. It has the best all-star game. It has the best all-star fun event in the home run derby. The home run derby last night was better than anything that the NFL's thrown together in the last decade. It was better than the shit show that the NBA dunk contest has become. It's the best all-star event that they have. And now the MLB has the best all-star game. And what have the last 2 nights shown me? The last 2 nights have freaking shown me that Major League Baseball could be so much more popular than it is. Major League Baseball could be more than just a regionalized thing where people only care about the team that they follow. I'll be completely honest. Like I don't really know much about Matt Chapman. I haven't followed Matt Chapman's season at all. I don't know. I don't care. I don't care about all these other teams from all these other regions that have all these other good players. And the only reason other teams know about George Springer and Jose Altuve, Carlos Correa, Alex Bregman, and all of those guys is because the Astros won a World Series. But there are good personalities in Major League Baseball that this league just isn't going to take advantage of. There's good personalities that they could market that are just so incredibly marketable. That moment, the very first moment that the Astros players were mic'd up during the All-Star game just a little bit ago, George Springer had to throw the ball to second base. And Alex Bregman immediately said, "Hey, Mike, go figure. George didn't throw it to his cutoff man." And then he started giggling, which he might have one. Alex Bregman, I know how polarizing he is and how much Dodgers fans and Red Sox fans and some baseball fans in general just tend to not like him. But Alex Bregman might have one of the most likable personalities in all of sports. It's not even baseball. And I'm talking about completely hands down in all of sports. He has one of the most likable personalities. So the All-Star game, I love it, man. MLB All-Star game over every other league's All-Star game. The home run derby was great, and I want more of it. I want more. And that's what we're going to get to. I want more home runs in the home run derby. I want these guys to keep going back and forth. I want them to keep going after it. And if that means that they have to keep juicing the balls, keep juicing the balls. Justin Verlander said that the balls are juiced. That's why there's more home runs. Andy says Matt Chapman's the next Josh Donaldson. But Justin Verlander said that the balls are juiced. And Rob Manfred came out today and said, no, the balls aren't juiced. They're not juiced at all. We haven't done there. We've put out no edicts. We haven't told them to change the balls in any other way or in any way for any reason. The balls are the same balls. We're not doing anything to make them more offensive. But here's my problem. Like, do we even care? Like, at the end of the day, do we even care if the balls are juiced? And now they've got Joe Buck coming out tonight, and they had the broadcasters last night talking about, well, it's just these young guys, it's the philosophy, and it's the hitting style. They have this philosophy of they have to hit a bunch of home runs, and they've got launch angles and blah 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 blah. They've got all these things, it's not the balls, it's just these players think differently. Their philosophy is completely different. That's why there's more home runs. It just seems very PR-y to me. It seems very, very PR-ish, a little bit too convenient. Like, I think the balls are juiced, and I don't care. I absolutely do not care at all, because if it's going to make the game more entertaining by allowing more home runs, like, I get it. Like, I get it. If you're a pitcher, you're a little pissed off because guys can hit home runs off of you a little bit easier, but it's not like you're the only one. It's every pitcher. So everything's going to even out. You know what I mean? Like if it's going to increase all, like, league wide, increase the amount of home runs hit by 13%, we'll say, or 12%. It's going to increase by 12% for every pitcher, for every team across the entire league, so everything balances out and evens out. So it's not that big of a deal. And if it makes it more entertaining to watch, like, I was at the Astros game, I was at the Astros-Angels game the other day, and that was a hell of a lot of fun to watch, man. That Yuli grand slam to tie it up was one of my favorite live sporting events moments that I've ever experienced. It was so much fun. And so if they are juicing the balls, I don't care. Keep doing it. Juice them more. Put all the juice in them. Just fill them with steroids. I don't even know what juicing means. Can somebody please explain to me what juicing a ball means? My buddy Brett says I think they should just use a T. Yeah, they probably should just use a T. Gazzy96 says, I mean, we could see it when Puig hit that one-handed home run versus the Stros in 2017. Yeah, that was the beginning of it, right? They've owned the company that makes the balls. They've owned them for 2 years. So if I'm baseball, like, why? I think Paul Gallant, @Gallant says on Twitter, said it earlier. He tweeted out, he said, why not admit it? They're obviously doing it. Why not admit it? Absolutely. Just admit that you're juicing it. Nobody's going to care at the end of the day. You don't have players taking steroids. It's making it even for everybody across the field. So just go ahead and do it, man. But Rob Manfred says they're not, and I am not convinced at all. I don't care if they are doing it. I don't think anybody will care if they are doing it. And if anybody cares, that they're juicing the ball. It's these baseball purists that don't want the game to change. Well, look, the game that you don't want to change, it's still changing. Because if Major League Baseball doesn't change it to make it more entertaining, the game's just going to continue. The game will start dying. And less people are going to care about it, and less people are going to watch it. So they've got to change to make it more entertaining and if that's a millennial thing or if that's a generational thing or whatever, it doesn't matter. People aren't going to watch it. Like, my kids sit around and watch YouTube on their tablets all day. Like, my son loves baseball, but he's not just going to sit there and just watch a pitcher's duel for 4 hours. My kids were miserable the other day. They were miserable. It was a 5-hour game. We showed up at the park because it was Kids Day. We showed up at 10:30, and then they wanted to run the bases afterwards, so we didn't leave until 7. Now, that's different, but still, like, a 5-hour baseball game, that's painful. It's painful for anybody to sit through. I was hungover. Oh, my God, I can't even tell you how hungover I was. I woke up in so much pain, and I went to Minute Maid, and I cheered on the Astros for 5 hours, and it's one of the most painful things I've ever done in my entire life. But even if I hadn't been hungover, it still would have been painful. So make it more entertaining. Keep juicing the balls if you're doing it. And market these players that we're seeing in the All-Star game. Market the Matt Chapmans, the Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s. Like, we have this massive race between Christian Yelich and Cody Bellinger, and they've really hardly done anything to market the damn thing. Nobody's really talking about it at all, except for teams in that market and maybe a little bit nationally. But everybody should be talking about that race. Everybody should be talking about those two guys in every single market if Major League Baseball would market it the right way. But anyway, what do I know about baseball? I'm just a basketball guy. And speaking of basketball, well, we're not going to get into that yet. I really want Russell Westbrook to come to the Rockets, but I'll explain myself in a little bit. But we'll do a little bit of football first. We're about 2 weeks away from training camp. I don't know, it's like 15 days. Maybe we're at 14 days now. We're very, very close to Texans training camp. And the only relevant Texans topic that I have seen is that the Texans offensive line, based off of Pro Football Focus, which I know that's a dirty word. Pro Football Focus is a 4-letter word to some people. But based off of Pro Football Focus, the Texans have the second worst offensive line in the going into the 2019 season in the NFL. This is what they had to say. So their projected starting lineup, as you can see in the screen, it's Julian Davenport at left tackle, Seneo Kelemete at left guard, which is just... Their projected starting lineup is just god-awful. I swear to God, if Seneo Kelemete is starting at the beginning of the season, I'm just going to pull my eyes out. Nick Martin at center, Zach Fulton at right guard, and Titus Howard at right tackle. First of all, I think they're totally wrong on their projected starting lineup. I know multiple different people and guys that I know, they've had multiple different ways that the starting lineup could go. Seneo Kelemete isn't going to be starting at left guard. He's just not. Julian Davenport might start, but he's not going to be there for long. So their starting lineup is terrible. But what they said is, all things considered, the Houston Texans offensive line didn't get much better on paper. Moves were made, including taking Howard and Sharping in the first 2 rounds and signing veteran Matt Khalil. But until those players live up to expectations, the Texans remain the bottom of the barrel. Ooh, the bottom of the barrel, Houston Texans. So how do we feel about Pro Football Focus ranking the Houston Texans offensive line as the 31st offensive line in the entire NFL? Like, how does that make us feel about what this offense can do with Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller, which is all like the commercial, the new HEB commercial, which was a live shot HEB commercial, was absolutely awesome. Where Deshaun Watson throws a piece of sushi with chopsticks, and DeAndre Hopkins reaches back and catches the piece of sushi with chopsticks himself. It's absolutely incredible. But how do we feel about the Texans' offensive line? I have absolutely zero faith in this offensive line. I have no faith that they're going to be able to do what they need to do this season to protect Deshaun Watson. But here's the thing. I didn't have faith in them last year either. I didn't really have a ton of faith in them going into last season with good reason. and they didn't perform well. And I know Julian Davenport had a bunch of false starts, and he wasn't the best. And I know Chantrell Henderson got hurt, so he didn't get to play. I've talked ad nauseum about how bad Nick Martin is as a center. We saw Pro Football Focus rank him as the 5th best center in the AFC South. The 5th best center. The Texans' starting center in an AFC South of 4 teams was the 5th best center in the AFC South. And I know people have said, I think Wade Smith has said that the problems that the offensive line had, especially Julian Davenport, were a lot because of Nick Martin. But this is just a bad, like at some point we just say Julian Davenport's bad. He's not a good player. He's not a good offensive lineman. And that's okay to say that. Like we shouldn't sit here and coddle these dudes. They're professional athletes. I mean, we're not talking about them being bad human beings. We're not talking about them being bad people in general. They're just bad at football. They're bad at blocking guys at the NFL level. The Texans' offensive line is absolute garbage. Ranked 30th or 31st? Second worst in the entire league? And you've got your franchise quarterback. Brian Gaine got fired for what he did with the offensive line. They could have had Andre Dillard. They could have gone out and signed. They could have gotten a Trent Brown. They could have gotten so many different guys to help bolster that offensive line, and they did none of that. And now you've got your franchise quarterback protected behind nothing. Like, honestly, what I really, really hope is that Kiki QT stays healthy, Will Fuller stays healthy, and DeAndre Hopkins continues to stay healthy. That way, Deshaun Watson has as many targets and as many options to throw to as he possibly can once the offensive line ultimately and inevitably lets people through. Like, I don't know how you could feel good if you're Deshaun Watson. How you can feel good behind a starting offensive line that has those names on it. Like, let's just say that is the projected starting lineup. That is the starting lineup. If I'm Deshaun Watson and I find out that Seneo Kelemete is for sure starting at left guard, I'm terrified. Seneo Kelemete, I get he was dealing with injuries, but he was on his ass more than anybody else last year. He just got blown up over and over and over and over again. And if Julian Davenport starts at left tackle, how are we supposed to feel about that? Like, even if it was Nick Martin's fault that he was getting false starts, he still sucked at blocking people. He wasn't good at it. He still let way too many guys through. And then Titus Howard. It's Titus Howard and Max Sharping. Look, I love those draft picks. I don't want to sit there and poo-poo on those draft picks. I love them. But, like, are Titus Howard and Max Sharping supposed to be the guys that are coming in and saving this terrible offensive line? No. They're rookies. They're rookies, and you're relying on a second-round pick and a guy who was maybe a reach as a first-round pick to be the saviors of the offensive line. And, man, that's a recipe for disaster. That is an absolute recipe for disaster with your franchise quarterback's health on the line. But, I mean, we'll see. Maybe they end up being better. Maybe Titus Howard, maybe Max Sharping does something. Chantrell Henderson steps up. Like, maybe a Martinez Rankin comes in and plays one of those guard spots. Maybe they do better than what we all think they're going to be. But right now, it does not look pretty. And that's the only Texans thing that I have to talk about. Because it was just, we kind of knew. We already know they're bad. But just to see it visually like that, and to know that everybody else knows how bad the Texans offensive line is, it sucks. And I absolutely hate it. So let's move on to the Rockets. I want Russell Westbrook to be a Houston Rocket so bad right now. I want Russell Westbrook. I want them to do whatever they have to do to go and trade for him within reason. Obviously, it's not like I don't want them to trade everybody away just to go out and get Russell Westbrook. And I know it defies all logic. I'm totally aware of that. I know that Russell Westbrook and James Harden together probably won't work. I totally get that. But there's just something in me that wants to see what the Rockets can do with another superstar talent. You know what kills me more than anything, and I talked about this earlier today, but what kills me more than anything is the fact that, like, let's take Russell Westbrook right now a little bit, because Colin Cowherd came out and said that Russell Westbrook's legacy is tainted with pointless stats. Okay, which is that's not too far from the truth. He's not totally wrong on that. But let's just take Russell Westbrook, Kawhi Leonard, and Anthony Davis. I'm going to use those 3 examples. Kawhi Leonard was already a Finals MVP with the San Antonio Spurs. He decides to sit out for a season because he wants to make sure that he's healthy and ready to go. He didn't trust that the Spurs doctors. He didn't trust their opinion. He didn't feel like he was ready to go. And as we saw with Kevin Durant in the playoffs just a month ago, sometimes maybe the players are right to trust their own bodies and not trust team doctors that work for teams that are trying to get them out there while they're trying to win a championship. Maybe it's a good thing for these players to trust themselves and trust their bodies. And Kawhi Leonard decides to go and trust himself and wait to see if he gets healthy, and then we condemn him for it. What the hell is that all about? Kawhi Leonard, at one point, we were talking about when he won the Finals MVP, people were talking about him in the same breath as LeBron James. And then he sits out for 1 season, and people call him disloyal. He sits out for 1 season to make sure that he's healthy, and people start calling him disloyal. Start saying that he's really not that good of a player. Start diminishing who he is, detracting from the type of player he is. It's absolutely ridiculous. And then what does he do? He goes to Toronto. He gets traded to Toronto. He has the stupid laugh. We all think that the Raptors are going to be a big joke, and they make it to the finals. And then we thought, oh man, that's awesome, that's great. But the Warriors are just, well, except for me, but they were like, well, the Warriors are just going to wipe the floor with them. No, he goes out and wins a championship. And so because he decided to take a chance on himself and trust his own body and make sure he was going to stay healthy and continue having a long, healthy career, we condemn Kawhi Leonard, and he stopped being the superstar that he was. He stopped being the MVP caliber player, the LeBron James caliber player that we all talked about him being because of 1 season where he decided to sit out because his own teammates and players were talking shit about him. Now let's go to Anthony Davis. It's the same thing with Anthony Davis this year. He stays with the Pelicans organization. Their best move that they've made since Anthony Davis has been with them was signing Boogie Cousins. And Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins were absolutely wrecking shop through the NBA the first half of the year until DeMarcus Cousins got hurt. And then Anthony Davis put the team on his back and still took them to the playoffs. He had garbage around him. People talk about Drew Holiday. I get he made an all-defensive team, and I get he's a great defender. But people talk about Drew Holiday like he's some superstar player. He's a fringe star at best. But Anthony Davis decides that he wants to go to a better place where he has a better chance to win and move on because he's not going to re-sign with the team anyway, and he wants them to go ahead and get something for him. And he decides that he wants to go somewhere else, and now all of a sudden Anthony Davis isn't a Hall of Fame caliber player. Now all of a sudden Anthony Davis isn't an MVP caliber player. It's absolutely ridiculous how when these players bet on themselves and these players try to find themselves and put themselves in a better situation or a better position, that we condemn them for it. And now it's happening with Russell Westbrook. Now, Rockets fans diminishing what Russell Westbrook has done, and obviously people in the city of Houston, it makes total sense, right? Like, we spent 2 seasons trying to convince people that James Harden was a better player than Russell Westbrook, which he totally is. James Harden absolutely is a better player than Russell Westbrook. But that doesn't mean that Russell Westbrook didn't win an MVP. That doesn't mean that Russell Westbrook isn't still a superstar player. And we are clamoring, people in the city of Houston were clamoring for Jimmy Butler for the last 3 weeks. He's a ball-dominant, egocentric player. And yes, he is a better shooter than Russell Westbrook, but he is not a better player than Russell Westbrook. Jimmy Butler wasn't even the best player in Philadelphia last year. Everybody keeps telling me Jimmy Butler, he was the best player in Philadelphia. No, Joel Embiid was. You could argue that Ben Simmons was, even though Ben Simmons wasn't a better offensive player, or at least a better shooter. You could argue he was a better overall player. Jimmy Butler only averaged 18.2 points in Philadelphia last year. Tobias Harris did the same thing. JJ Redick averaged 18.1 points. So can we say that Tobias Harris and J.J. Redick were the best players in Philadelphia? And so Rockets fans were clamoring for Jimmy Butler. But now, no, we don't want Russell Westbrook. He's too much of a head case. He causes too many problems. He's been with the same team his entire career, and they've loved him. And they're looking to move him on because they're trying to rebuild and they're trying to be respectful towards him. Russell Westbrook might be a bit of a character. He might have some personality quirks, but he's an incredibly loyal, passionate player who wants to win. Jimmy Butler cries every place he's been and gets himself moved from the Bulls, then from Minnesota, then he leaves Philadelphia. If Jimmy Butler was the best player on the 76ers, if Jimmy Butler was the best player in Philadelphia, then why didn't they do more to try to keep him there? They prioritized Tobias Harris over him. If Jimmy Butler was that fucking good, then why is he not a 76er? But no, don't go with Russell Westbrook. He talked back to some media members. You guys talk shit about us all day long. Like I love all of you, by the way. I'm not mad at y'all at all. Like people who listen to the talking heads and listen to sports media and read journalist articles, y'all talk shit about us all day long. But then when Russell Westbrook talks back to a reporter, that's whenever y'all decide to defend us? No, it's ridiculous. And now you hear Colin Cowherd talking crap about Russell Westbrook. People talking about, oh, Russell Westbrook isn't this superstar player. He's not this incredible talent. Yes, he has had a couple of bad shooting seasons. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he's done. I don't know that the fit with Paul George was exactly perfect. He went from having this system built around him and Kevin Durant to a system built around him and Paul George, and it wasn't the same. I don't know if the chemistry was exactly there. And obviously it wasn't if Paul George was so ready to leave and get out of there because he wanted to play with Kawhi Leonard. So I want Russell Westbrook in Houston. I don't care. I don't care if it defies logic. I don't care if it doesn't make any sense. I think Russell Westbrook would be an absolutely incredible talent to add to this roster. Because look, I don't care... I don't care that the Warriors aren't as good, right? I don't care that they lost Kevin Durant and they had to bring in D'Angelo Russell, which, I mean, honestly, like if you're talking about bringing in, if you're talking about having a consolation prize, being able to work that sign and trade for D'Angelo Russell when you lose Kevin Durant is a pretty damn good consolation prize. When people just thought that Kevin Durant was just gonna bolt and they weren't gonna get anything. So the Warriors pick up D'Angelo Russell. They're going to fall off, but they're not going to fall off a ton. The Clippers are going to be an absolutely ridiculous matchup at the playoffs. Like, how comfortable do you feel in the playoffs with a team that's got Chris Paul and James Harden versus Paul George and Kawhi Leonard? I don't feel very good about that. But if you tell me that you have a Rockets team that's got Russell Westbrook and James Harden against Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, I don't feel great, but I feel better. I feel a hell of a lot better. The Lakers are going to be an absolutely incredible team. Look at the lineup that the Lakers have, by the way. With the Lakers deciding to start LeBron James at point guard, their lineup is going to be LeBron at the 1, Danny Green at the 2, Kyle Kuzma at the 3, Anthony Davis at the 4, and then either DeMarcus Cousins or JaVale McGee at the 5. Most likely Boogie, right? Like, I seriously, even with the injury history, I seriously doubt that JaVale McGee is going to start over DeMarcus Cousins. That's an incredible starting 5. How do you feel in a 7-game series against the Lakers if you're the Rockets? Now, I know the Lakers coming off the bench, they've got like Alex Caruso and a bucket of nothing. But I don't feel good in a 7-game series if my two headliners are Chris Paul and James Harden, and I'm going against Klay Thompson will be back for the Warriors at that point. So it's, once again, Chris Paul and James Harden. We've seen that doesn't work against the Warriors all the time. And people are going to say, well, it's the Warriors without Kevin Durant now. It's the Warriors without Kevin Durant. Well, you know what? The Warriors without Kevin Durant absolutely torched the Rockets with Chris Paul and James Harden. It was actually better for the Rockets to have Kevin Durant in there, because the Warriors made the Rockets look silly in the playoffs this last year when Kevin Durant went out. And so it's not like it's a good matchup. Do you feel good in a 7-game series against the Warriors with D'Angelo Russell, Klay Thompson, and Steph Curry and Draymond Green? Now, missing Andre Iguodala might be a pretty big thing. But how do you feel in a 7-game series against the Clippers? How do you feel in a 7-game series against the Lakers, against the Nuggets, when you're rolling out there with Chris Paul? It's not James Harden, obviously. He's great. Everybody talks about how Kevin Durant's the best basketball player in the world. He's the best offensive basketball player in the world. They're wrong. It's James Harden. Like, if right now I'm choosing, take injuries away. If right now I'm choosing one of those two guys to build a team around, I'm choosing James Harden over Kevin Durant. James Harden's a better player. So he's not the problem, but the problem is Chris Paul. I feel much better about my odds in the playoffs in a 7-game series with a guy like Russell Westbrook on my team rather than a guy like Chris Paul. And that's what it comes down to. It's not like you're replacing James Harden with Russell Westbrook. You're replacing Chris Paul with Russell Westbrook. And everybody before it, me included, before Chris Paul came to Houston said it's not going to work. It's never going to work. No, Chris Paul is not going to play off the ball. They both have to have the ball in their hands. It won't work. I said the same thing. But maybe Russell Westbrook could be willing to change. And I'm willing to roll the dice on that. I'm willing to roll the dice on an incredibly talented basketball player who is an MVP caliber talent, who has averaged triple doubles the last 2 years. I'm willing to roll the dice on that over an old aging Chris Paul with a shitty contract. And you'd be stupid not to. Anybody who's not willing to roll the dice on that is absolutely stupid not to be willing to do it. I'm getting close to the end of the show. All right, I have one more thing I want to talk about because this is just funny to me. This is just absolutely silly. Well, one of them's not. One of them's sad, but the second part of this is silly to me. Andy says, and Chris Paul's weak hamstrings. Yeah, absolutely. Before I end the show, though, when is it time to call it quits? It's fitting. It's fitting since I started the show with no microphone on and did 10 minutes of a show with no microphone on because I'm a fucking idiot. But when is it time to call it quits? So Glover Quinn retired today, which we all know who Glover Quinn is because Glover Quinn played for the Texans for a while and he's played for the Lions for the last 5 seasons, something like that. And he's one of those guys who got away in free agency and went and signed with Detroit and was really good with him. And the Texans probably should have done a lot more to try to keep Glover Quinn around. But he called it quits today after 10 years in the league. And that makes me kind of sad. Like he's probably going to go off and do way better things and do awesome things with his time and his money. And so I'm happy for him. But man, that's a guy who I would have loved to see stay in Houston just a little bit longer. So he decided to call it quits. He decided it was time. He felt it. He felt it in his body. He felt it in his brain. I'm going to stop doing this before I do irreparable damage that can't be fixed, and I can't feel better. I can't live with myself. I'm done with football, and I'm okay with that. That's the decision that Glover Quinn made today. Andy said Joey Gallo hit an all-star game homer. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about those Northern Oklahoma Ramgers. Yeah, that's right. You heard me, Andy. You heard me. But anyway, when is it time to call it quits? If Glover Quinn can feel it after 10 years in the NFL, don't you think that Monte Ellis and Amari Stoudemire should probably take the hint too? Isn't it about time for those guys to call it quits? Apparently both Monte Ellis and Amari Stoudemire are working out for teams and trying to make a comeback. Monte Ellis is one of the weirdest NBA trajectories for me. And I guess maybe I'm a little bit too close to the situation and that's the biggest problem. But Monte Ellis was going to be this fringe, like, oh, is he going to make an all-star game? Look at how athletic he is. Oh, look how easily he can score. It's incredible how good he is. He's a little bad on defense. He does get a lot of steals, but oh man, offensively he's a great player when he was with Golden State. And then Golden State went out and drafted Steph Curry, and Monte Ellis got really, really, really expendable because Steph Curry is Steph Curry. Andy said, wouldn't they be Southern Oklahoma? Shut up, South Oklahoma. Anyway, so Monte Ellis is trying to come back now. Like, he went from the Warriors, he ended up going to the Mavericks, and he actually looked really, really good for the Mavericks until Rajon Rondo got traded there. When the Mavericks made that trade with the Celtics for Dwight Powell and Rajon Rondo, the relationship, because Rondo and Monte Ellis were such good friends, and then Rondo hated Rick Carlisle so much. Rajon Rondo deteriorated the relationship between Monte Ellis and Rick Carlisle, and Monte Ellis started playing like crap. Like Monte Ellis's first year in Dallas, he probably should have been an all-star. One of the biggest all-star, and I don't care if that sounds biased, it's one of the biggest all-star stubs of all time, in my opinion. But he probably should have been an all-star. And Amari Stoudemire, my God, man. Like, I know you've been playing overseas, but, like, aren't your knees done now? Like, aren't your knees just completely shot? That's why, like, when is it time to call it quits? I feel like maybe Monte has a chance to go and maybe kind of be like a 6th man to an 8th man or a 9th man. Maybe he could go to a contender and be a role player off the bench and play like 10-ish minutes. He's lost a step. He's not as fast. He's not as athletic. He's always been an undersized guard. But maybe he can do it. But, dude, Amari, you need to quit, man. Just make money overseas and be an icon. What in the hell are you thinking? Why are you trying to make an NBA comeback? You went to New York with Carmelo and couldn't even do it there, and that was like 10 years ago, bro. That was such a long time ago. And not quite 10 years ago, but still. That was such a long time ago. And you're trying to come back with knee injuries now? You need to go bathe. He's been bathing in too much wine. That's the problem. Amari's been bathing in wine again, everybody. That's every time. Yeah, Andy, I'm absolutely saying Rajon Rondo's a cancer. Anytime Amari Stoudemire tries to make an NBA comeback, we're just all going to assume that he's bathing in too much wine again. But that's crazy, man. We see it all the time in professional sports. These guys never know when to call it quits. They never know when to stop. Which I guess, I mean, I don't know how I would feel. Like, it'd be hard to do that one thing your entire life and have that one goal and then just be okay with being done with it. I get that. I mean, hell, I just made the decision to kind of stop pursuing radio the way I was pursuing radio. And now I'm doing a fake radio show for like 10 people tops. How many people are watching me right now? How many people are watching me live? I had a bunch earlier, but I think I said something stupid and they all left, which is, I mean, that's fine. It happens. Oh, I got 9. I was close. I got 9 people watching me right now. Whenever I was doing the show in the beginning, the no microphone show, I had like 15 people watching me. Now, I have 2 questions about that, which I'm about to end this. We're talking about, like, when is it time to call it quits. But I have 2 questions for the time that I had no microphone for 10 minutes and 15 people were watching me just on Twitter alone. Why in the fuck were you watching me for 15 minutes with no microphone? I'd like to imagine that everybody was just sitting there watching me completely silent with no noise, just trying to figure, like they were just trying to dub my voice. Like people were just dubbing over my mouth moving. Which that was, I don't know. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, everybody. I'm going to do the show. I'm really excited. I've tried to do this show as fast as possible tonight because I wanted to watch the All-Star game, and I still want to go back and finish the All-Star game. But every Tuesday and Thursday night at 9 o'clock, except for this Thursday, I'm very, very excited. I'm going to do the show at 8 o'clock on Thursday night, 8 o'clock Central Time on Thursday night, because I'm going to have Slasher, who is a massive, Rod Breslau, Slasher, massive esports guy, massive esports personality, but also a massive New York Knicks fan. And I'm going to have him on the show to talk about his New York Knicks woes. I wanted to get a legitimate living in New York Knicks fan on the show so he can talk about how bad it feels to be a New York Knicks fan. Because as sad as you are about your team, as sad as you are watching your team, if you're a Mavericks fan who didn't make any moves, or a Rockets fan who you don't know if you're going to be saddled with Russell Westbrook or not, it's still not as bad as being a New York Knicks fan. So I'm going to have Slasher on with me at 8 o'clock on Thursday night. So all you guys need to tune in and watch it. But every Tuesday and Thursday, watch the show Wasted Talent with Josh Beard at 9 o'clock. I appreciate all you guys. Go follow me at Josh Beard Radio on Twitter, at Josh Beard Radio on Facebook, and you can find me Toofpete, TOOFPETE, on YouTube and Instagram. But thanks for watching my fake radio show, everybody, and y'all have a wonderful